I'm Christian Malesic, Executive Officer of the HBA of Berks County, Pennsylvania. And I'm not an attorney. I am an MBA. We're going to translate the lofty ivory tower language of the attorney into thingamajig, how you doing, and whatchamacallit, so that the average Joe and Jane contractor can apply it to their business today. Although this is based on Pennsylvania law, it will apply in most other states as well. I did put a little bit of legalese in here, but the goal of today's contract section is to explain it in plain English. So I'm not going to read what's on the papers, but I did provide some of the information on the papers so that you can understand what the way the lawyers look at things. And I do want to start out with the definition of a contract. So we're going to start out way at the beginning, but we're going to move pretty quick and get past that pretty quick. So the definition of a contract is a voluntary, deliberate, keyword, deliberate and legally binding agreement between two or more competent parties. Now, normally we see it between two in the contractor world. It's either us as the contractor and the, whether it be the homeowner or the business owner, or maybe another contractor that would be our trade contractor underneath us. If we're selling material, then it might be us as the material or vendor supplier and the company that's receiving the material. We may have an annual contract or a one-time contract. Between two or more competent parties, contracts are usually written, but may be spoken or implied, and generally have to do with employment, sale, lease, or tenancy. Obviously, also construction and contracting, which isn't listed. Kind of ironic that the lawyers did not list. We're called contractors after all, but yet they forgot us in their legal definition. I find that ironic. So, a couple reasons I point that out is a contract has to be deliberate. It has to be purposeful. So there has to be an agreement between two parties that there's going to have an exchange. And that's where the next term comes in. The next term is called consideration. And consideration is we both have to get something out of it. We both have to have value. The homeowner gets their roof repaired, their pipes fixed, a new furnace installed, new landscaping or a new kitchen countertop, whatever the case may be, we get money. Or the supplier gets money and we get parts and pieces to help us do the job. Or the subcontractor gets money and we get the benefit of their skills and labor to help us complete the job that we're working on, and we're treating them as a trade or a subcontractor. So consideration is an important term, and it means that there needs to be tit for tat. There needs to be give and take. A contract cannot be one-sided. Most people don't realize that contracts are fully negotiable. Those of us that are trade contractors think that we have to accept the contract that's given to us by the general contractor, by the home builder, by the landlord, by the vendor. No, all contracts are negotiable. Now, are you in a situation where they're the only game in town, and if you don't buy the glass from them, there's nobody else to buy it from? Well, maybe back in the day you were in a bind. Today you have the internet. Today you have shipping that is better than it's ever been in the history of the world. So you may be able to buy it from the town or the city or the state or the country next door. That would be your choice. You do not have to agree with the contractual terms that are presented to you by the presenter. So whoever originally wrote them, contracts are supposed to be negotiated. That's what consideration is all about. So there's some additional examples that's provided in the packet there of both the definition of contract and where it applies in consideration. But that's kind of the foundation. If you think about building a house, the way I look at it is we've just dug the footers and we've poured the footers, and now we're getting going on building this house. So it's very important that we understand that in the next few concepts, so that when we start getting to clauses and concepts and how to put this together, that you're totally on board. So does anybody want to cover that, ask questions, get into what's a contract all about and consideration? So let's talk about kind of getting to contract. We jumped right to contract, but we didn't talk about the steps that get there, and there's a real misunderstanding of how this happens. The best world in which to talk about this in, which it really applies to everything, but the best world to apply this in to kind of take it away from what we're all doing day to day is to talk about buying a house. So we're all familiar with if you haven't bought one yourself, your parents bought one, or you know someone that bought one, and you've at least heard some of the lingo. We're all familiar with, I put in an offer. If the other party accepts the offer as is, we have both parts of a contract and it becomes a contract. And so, in fact, in Pennsylvania and in most states as well, the paperwork that we fill out as we put in an offer has been designed by the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, PAR. So we actually fill out one side of a contract. When the receiving party gets it, which in this case would be the seller, if they say, looks good to me, sign date, contract. We have both parts. We have offer, we have acceptance. That's what makes a contract. Okay, so here's the question. Counter offer. Where does counter offer come in? No such thing. Counter offer doesn't exist. It is slang that has begun to develop a mind of its own, a term of its own. You can find it defined now because it's kind of come into being. But really what it means is rejection of offer and presentation of new offer. It really is combining two steps. Okay, so again, I'm the buyer, you're the seller. You put your house up on the market, you're advertising, I want to sell it for $250,000, let's say. And all these terms. You want to sell it in so many days, and this is what's included, the oven and the stove, and I'm going to cut the grass beforehand. And I say, I'll give you 240, and I put a bunch of terms, I'd like to close on this such a day. And you go, how about 245? Now, whether we do it just that simple, like we might do at a flea market where we're kind of haggling, or we do it in writing where she sends back 245, she has rejected my offer. We're done. I presented an offer, she rejected it. The fact that she said 245 back, it doesn't mean anything. It could, because she said 245 and initialed, now it's back to me. In other words, she has now made an offer to me. So if I say, done, we have a contract. So there's really only two parts of a contract. There's offer, and there's acceptance. Now you can think of rejection as the opposite of offer. So counter offer then, and I'm hopefully not being too confusing here, counter offer is really just putting two steps together, and as we Americans do, it's making things quicker and faster, and that's what we're known for throughout the United States and throughout the world, is putting things together faster. So those two parts together make an offer, and make an offer and acceptance make a contract. So let's bring it back to what we do here in the Home Builders Association. You provide some of us call it an estimate, some of us call it a proposal, some of us provide a quotation. Some of us provide a bid. We can argue all day long about what the difference between the four are, and I certainly have some opinions on that. But for our conversation, let's pretend that a bid is the same thing as an offer, is the same thing as a quotation, is the same thing as an estimate, is the same thing as a proposal. As soon as the homeowner, the trade contractor, the vendor, the buyer, whatever the case may be, they agree to those terms by signing the contract, or they go, yes, I'll take that widget for $52. Yes, I'll buy the microwave for $486. Whatever the case may be, you now have a contract. Now, it doesn't have to be in writing. Remember, it can be written, it can be verbal, or it can be implied. Obviously, certainly when we're providing services, we always want it to be written. It can be in the form of what I call a mini contract. Sign the bottom of my proposal and date it. It's just one page, one piece of paper that has my scope of work and my price on it. You sign and date. We have a mini contract, or it can be the 8, 9, 10 page thing that we might need for the Home Improvement Consumer Protection Act in Pennsylvania.